Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Aquarium of the Pacific. My name is Jenny Dean, and I'm the Aquarium's Vice President of Education and Conservation, and it's my pleasure tonight to welcome you to the second First Wednesday of 2024. We are here because we have some generous sponsors who are making it possible for you to be with us tonight. Those include the Long Beach Container Terminal, the Stephen and Brenda Olson family, the Osborne and Rourke Charitable Trust, and the Courtyard by Marriott Downtown Long Beach Hotel. There's not just people in the room today, there's also some people online. So thank you for all those folks who are joining us online. And if you're in the room today, but want to share it with your coworker or your friend tomorrow, it'll be online tomorrow too. We do archive all of our First Wednesday talks, so you can go back in time and learn about sea otters or share more about sustainability at the port with your colleagues into the future. That's what we're talking about tonight, sustainability, more specifically at the Long Beach Container Terminal. We're going to be talking about how this location has really been an innovator in supply chain sustainability. And in fact, in 2023, it was the USGBC's Project of the Year. What is the USGBC? That stands for the Green Business Council, if you're not already familiar. So this is a really high honor, and we're very excited today to host our guest speaker, Bonnie Nixon. Bonnie is the Director of Sustainability at the Long Beach Container Terminal. And before that, she's had a very strong career in sustainability quite broadly. So she's worked in the private sector and had leadership positions at organizations such as Hewlett-Packard, Walmart, and Mattel Toys, helping them navigate through the sustainability journey. She's also worked in the public sector, helping government institutions build their environmental infrastructure more sustainably. And she works in academia as well. She has teaching positions at UCLA and Harvard, and she herself is ever learning. She is in her final months of completing her PhD in, I want to make sure I get it exactly correct, in global leadership and change, and her thesis is looking at modern slavery in complex supply chains. So we really have a genius, if you will, in sustainability and specifically supply chain sustainability with us tonight. So I'm very excited that she's here to tell you more about what's happening with our neighbor. As you will remember from your previous attendance at a First Wednesday, or if you haven't been here before, we would like you to silence your phones such that everyone gets the full experience of Bonnie when she comes up here. And we will have an opportunity for question and answers at the end. So make sure you save your questions, and then once she finishes her remarks, we'll have the opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper and also to meet your peers. So tonight we have not only staff of the Aquarium of the Pacific, residents of Long Beach, but also some special people from the Long Beach Container Terminal, as well as some young professional groups who have come out tonight. And we encourage you to think broadly about your network and invite maybe like groups to join us at future First Wednesdays. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ms. Nixon. Thank you so much. Please silence your phones.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to be part of this program. I love the aquarium. Just only a couple of months ago, we helped to host and sponsor the sea turtle documentary here. And plus, we also got about 40 of our employees out to clean up and try and restore some of the area out by the power plant down here in Long Beach, where much of the sea turtles reside, and they're really amazing creatures. So it's just a pleasure to be part of the aquarium, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in this industry. So let me talk first about the San Pedro Port Complex. I'm going to start big and sort of narrow down to who we are. This Long Beach Port Complex, and it includes San Pedro, has about 13 terminals, container terminals at it. 7 are on the LA side, 6 are on the Long Beach side. And we are the 9th busiest port in the world. In addition to that, we also are generating 3 million jobs nationwide. So that's important. And I think a really incredible and important fun fact is that 40% of the goods that come into the entire United States come through this port complex. So think about that. Everything that you touch, that you eat, that you wear, the furniture you sit on, the homes that you build, the cars that you commute in, 40% of that is coming through this complex. So a really important fact. So let's talk a little bit about what some of the benefits are, or what some of the challenges are that face this region. Safety is critical at a terminal, and so every day we're working with our workforce to make sure that everything is safe. And we would have to say that at LBCT, Long Beach Container Terminal, we've received for the last couple of years the Signal Awards and are just really embedding into our culture a true safety message. And it's our hope over the next couple of years that we will also do the same with sustainability. Goods movement is in Bakersfield is actually one of the, we call it severe non-attainment, but across the country they look and they say, where is the most smog, where is the most pollution in an area? Interestingly enough, the Bakersfield area is the highest and the San Pedro Port Complex is the second. However, the acronyms up here that you see have all made it a high priority to reduce those emissions over the last few years and have done an enormous job and really need to be congratulated for many of you who probably lived here in Los Angeles in the 70s or 80s, 60s, 70s, you remember the smog. And a lot of that has been reduced. Those agencies are the US EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, the California Air Resources Board, the South Coast Air Quality Management District, of course the Port of Long Beach, and that owns all of the land that all of our facilities are on. And then we have really made it a top priority. And another fun fact is that, I've been doing this work for a little over 40 years, and I can honestly say that never before has this much funding, federal and state, been available for us, to reach into with the Infrastructure Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Bill. So these are ways that the government is really trying to catalyze and help us get to net zero. Another important thing that we have to do is protect our marine life. We're right here in the aquarium, and in 2023, the International Maritime Organization, or affectionately known as the IMO, which controls a lot of the shipping, really looked at the lanes and changed the speeds and some of the lanes, and that goes all the way out to the Channel Islands. So it's important to know that, and I think it's also a really fascinating, fun fact that a cargo ship can hold up to the weight of 60,000 elephants. So we care about whales and we care about elephants too. How do we define supply chains? This is fun for me because this is, as Jenny said, and I was so thrilled that Jenny is here at the aquarium and introduced me because she and I worked together at UCLA for a number of years. And I teach a course called Sustainable Supply Chain. And what we do is we look at things from the first mile all the way to the last mile. So many of you may not know that those things, same things that you're wearing or the household goods that you're buying, they start in cotton fields around the world. They start in forests where people are logging. They start in mines where we're extracting different minerals and metals. They start in the water where we're harvesting fish. How many of you knew that, your cans of cat food or, that have fish byproducts and fish oil, the majority of those come from 150,000 vessels that are sitting in the Gulf of Thailand. And another not so fun fact is that about 50,000 of those have what we call modern slaves on them. And those are people that are bonded, indebted, and not paid for their work. So during something like the pandemic, they weren't allowed off the boats for 17 months to 2 years. So it's important for us to think about that entire supply chain. Like, who's making the goods? How is it being logged? We often talk about, outsourcing, insourcing. Should we bring all this manufacturing back here? We have outsourced a lot of our goods, but we've also outsourced all that production as well as that pollution. You know, many of those communities are experiencing what we once experienced here in America. This takes a moment to change with me. So let's also talk about the different kinds of terminals. It's not changing up here. The different kinds of terminals that we have here in the Long Beach, or in the Port of Long Beach, and also the Port of LA. We have RoRos. That stands for roll on, roll off. So those are your vehicles, not just your cars, but your trucks and your heavy duty vehicles, those forklifts and some of the equipment that I'll be talking about. Those come off the RoRo terminals. There's one right on Pier F where we are, SSA terminal, that has that. There's also bulk terminals that brings sort of the bulk goods, wheat, and across from us is Morton salt. So, you know, those kinds of goods, lumber, those are moved at bulk terminals. There's tanker terminals. I mean, we typically think of the tanker terminals as those that just hold oil, but they'll also hold gases and other chemicals like ammonia. And then there's container terminals. And I'm going to spend a lot more time today talking about the container terminals. So the equipment that we see on a container terminal looks like this. Over here on this far side is what we call a yard tractor or a yard hustler or a UTR. And that's the real workhorse on a terminal. They're driving all around. And at LBCT, we have about 64 of those that take the goods, take the containers between the truck lanes and the rail. And we'll show you a video that will really illustrate exactly how that happens. And in a typical terminal, you'll see double, triple, quadruple that number. Like Phoenix over on the LA side has 220 yard tractors. So that's the kind of vehicle that you'll see most commonly used at a terminal. Also at other terminals, you have reach stackers and top handlers that, you know, have the flexibility and pick up the containers in different ways. Again, at most terminals, you'll see much of this equipment, a lot of these diesel pieces of equipment that will eventually shift over to electric and or hydrogen. At LBCT, we only have 2 top handlers and 1 reach stacker, largely because of our operations, which you'll see in a minute. We have small, medium, and large forklifts. And then finally, we have this little guy. It's called an IBC cart or a rail moving cart. And it really goes between the railroads and puts the cones in and makes sure that the containers are secure as it goes along the tracks. And shipping containers, move such a large percentage. So what are the top 5 imports and what are the top 5 exports? I always think this is really fascinating. I work again with all my students, and when we get into the class, I say, okay, what would you like to study? And in fact, this semester, we're building a ship. So they're looking, and it's in fact like a large yacht. We're looking at everything from sails to the steel to some of the equipment and things on board to what they might eat, to shellfish, to the different types of fuel like e-methanol or hydrogen or ammonia or CNG, LNG, or bunker fuel, which is most commonly used. So we're studying all of those things in class. But what often happens is I get to class and people are like, I want to study a pair of Nike sneakers or a leggings, or I want to study a cell phone. And many people, you know, we look at how they move from the first mile all the way to the last mile. So again, you know, these are the majority of the goods that are moving in and out of this port. And another fun fact is a container ship can carry the weight of the entire Statue of Liberty or the Eiffel Tower. So who is LBCT and who are we right here in your backyard? We are a container terminal that we've been here for over 50 years. It used to, a company called OOCL, you probably see the ships OOCL, was the owner of our terminal. It was sold during the last presidency to Macquarie. It is a private terminal. It is fully electrified, most technologically advanced terminal, and we'll show you what we mean by that in just a minute. It started as one berth, and the port and the company had the vision to say, look, let's redevelop all of Middle Harbor, and we'll make that 3 berths, and it will also be, all the equipment on it will be electrified. So we have 18 what we call ship-to-shore. There's large cranes. They're the tallest in the world, and they also have the furthest reach, which means that they can service the largest ships. And we also have a deep water draft here in Long Beach. You might go to other ports or terminals, and they can't receive ships of this magnitude or this size because they haven't dredged out as deeply, or they don't have that capacity. You will also see inland ports and things like that. But 80% of all of our goods were transported by ship. And I will say, I didn't say this earlier, that even though some of this equipment and some of these activities, we're working hard to reduce the emissions and remove the pollution, that shipping is the cleanest way to move goods. I mean, otherwise you're moving it by airplanes, and that releases a lot more emissions. So know that it is absolutely the most effective. And LBCT, we also work 365 days a year, 24/7. So again, we're right here. So I'm going to show you a brief 2-minute video, which I think will really give you a sense of what's right here in your backyard. Every time you go over that bridge and you look down at those big red and white cranes, you'll remember what you see here.
It was a bold idea, first conceptualized in 2001, to create one of the largest and greenest terminals in the world by combining 2 aging terminals into one. Construction started in 2011. Today, it is a reality. Long Beach Container Terminal at the Port of Long Beach is one of the world's most advanced shipping terminals with its zero-emission operation and state-of-the-art technology. Capable of handling 3.3 million TEUs annually, more than double the capacity of the 2 aging terminals it replaced, LBCT is one of the busiest container terminals in the United States. Using clean electricity to power its entire operation, today the 4,200-foot-long wharf can welcome the largest container ships in the world. To cut emissions, all the ships plug into shore power electricity while at berth. Then, using the only ship-to-shore cranes in the Americas capable of lifting 2 containers at the same time, the terminal can service 3 of the largest ships in the world at once. To quickly move the containers to the storage area, 102 automated guided transport vehicles, or AGVs, deliver them to the fully automatic stacks, where the all-electric, fully automated stacking cranes load the containers onto trucks. This highly orchestrated zero-emission operation is not only green, but also highly efficient, offloading and loading ships in less time than any other terminals on the West Coast, with trucks moving in and out of the terminal with record speed. For cargo that will be delivered via train, the intermodal rail facility has 6 semi-automated rail cranes to load and unload trains onto the largest on-dock rail facility in North America. All this using clean electricity to power these giant machines, making LBCT one of the most sustainable terminals in the world. The vision was clear from the start. Design and build a terminal like no other, a green terminal where the economy and environment thrive together, where green means productivity, jobs for our workforce, prosperity for the region, and protection of our air, water, and natural resources. The future is now at LBCT.
I was thinking when I was listening to that, I never get tired of seeing that video, and I also just never get tired of working at LBCT. I give a lot of groups tours and things, and And it's just fascinating. I mean, when you go out to after this session, we've got a couple of brochures that you're welcome to read that get into the detail. But you'll notice on the back there's a little picture of me on the very, this year I got to go to the very end of the crane. That's the top, the ship-to-shore crane. And it's just, it's so exciting, and it's just a fascinating place to see, again, right here in your backyard, that we spent $2.5 billion to create one of the world's leading terminals that truly is the greenest, and that's an exciting thing. And as the video said, we do pick up 2 containers on the ship at once, so we can be offloading and loading at the same time. And similarly, you know, if Eric is here, our head of our truck yard and gate operations, and the trucks love our terminal because, you know, at a traditional terminal, they'll have to go in, they'll go to a place where they'll, you know, take their container off, then they'll go to another place for chassis, then they'll go to another place to pick up a new container. So they're sort of going around and possibly idling and spending, you know, at least 90 minutes to several hours there, whereas at LBCT, we have gotten trucks in and out in 35 minutes or so. And that's because they just pull back, the truck driver jumps in a little booth, and for safety purposes, if it doesn't feel his feet and his weight, then nothing moves. And as soon as he's there, it comes down, picks up the container, puts it in the stack, brings another container, and he drives off. So that's called a dual transaction. So in both of those cases, we're doing 2 containers at once. Also, that those AGVs that you saw, the automated guided vehicles or the electrified container transport vehicles that we have, they go into the 2 of the largest, not of the largest, the largest battery exchange buildings in the world. In fact, just a couple of months ago, we finished the second one. And these vehicles drive in on their own, and a trolley system pulls out this 12-ton, 78 fuel cell battery pack and puts another one in 5 minutes, and it goes back out. It's one of the more fascinating and smooth-running systems on our terminal. And it's run by the system we call FROG, which is free range on grid. And there are these little 2-inch transponders or so that are in the road. You could do wireless as well, but our concern was that that wasn't as resilient in the event that wireless signals went down. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about air quality, and one of the most important reasons that we're investing, you know, over the next 6 or 7 years to get to net zero, as it said in the video, is the partners that we have. They really care about this. So we have what we call Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions. So a way to think about this is Scope 1 is that which we control. You know, we've already reduced our emissions by about 90%, and we have another 10% to go. And that is with the replacement of the 270 vehicles that we have on site. We will be at net zero. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But that's what we control on site, and we're already doing quite a bit. That which we cannot, that's going to take us the next 6 years, we purchase what we call carbon offsets. So that means we look around the whole marketplace and look, where can we remove carbon from somewhere else in the system while we're continuing to build or make ourselves net zero. Scope 2, and those of us who live and or work in Long Beach, are serviced by Southern California Edison. SCE today is about 45% fueled by renewable energy or renewable sources. And what we mean by that is solar and wind, the wind farms that you see on your drives out. And they are mostly, the other 50 or so percent is natural gas, so it's still a fossil fuel. They have vowed that by 2030, at the same time we've committed to being net zero, they will be 85% clean, 85% renewables. So that means we'll have to make up for that set 15%, and we will do that by putting more renewables on our site, we'll look at things like, additional solar panels, distributed generation, tidal power, wind, and or purchasing green power from elsewhere. Scope 3 is all of our partners. And for us, interestingly enough, most people would think that we're in control of this game as the terminal, but in fact, the leader is the ship. The ship is our customer. And the ship has the relationships with the terminals. The ship has the relationship with the train locomotives, with the trains, with the trucks, and with the tugs as well. So we look at that whole ecosystem and calculate the emissions. In fact, the port is the one that does a whole port-wide emission study. And then we take a look and say, okay, well, how many ships are here over the year, and how long did they stay? When did they arrive? When did they depart? And similarly, how many trucks came through our gates? We have all those numbers. How many train locomotives and trains were here, and how many tugs pushed those big ships in? So we have calculated our portion of the port-wide emissions, and then we're also looking at all of our other vendors, like our cleaning vendors and our solid waste vendors, our waste management, or our IT vendors, or our mechanics, and things like that. So that is our scope 3. And we will be continuing to work on over the next 10 to 20 years, like how we minimize and accelerate and enable and incentivize and support all of our partners in getting to net zero. That is one of the big challenges we have. But unlike, I would have to say to you, as someone who's done work in this space and worked for Hewlett-Packard and Walmart and Mattel, is nobody's finished calculating their scope 3 emissions. So we're really proud of that fact. And not only have we calculated those emissions, but we've purchased enough offsets to bring ourselves to carbon neutral in our scope 1 and 2. And I'll talk about just what I mean by that in a minute. But that is a really exciting fact. And what these partners want is they want clean entities in their scope 3 emissions. What's been happening with the onset of this term called ESG, environmental and social governance, is everybody's asking for all these metrics, and we're all trying to get there at the same time. And so they care about who their partners are. They want to see clean ships go to clean ports and clean terminals and clean trucks, because then they can take credit for that emissions reduction in their supply chain. And I think one of the most important fun facts that I didn't just mention there is that during this pandemic, LBCT did not have one ship at anchor. So when you were looking at all those ships that were up and down the coast, there were 106 at one point in time. Because of the nature of our production being fully electrified, we didn't have one ship sitting out there. We took every single ship on time. They departed on time, and we helped our sister and brother terminals as well by taking almost an additional 40 ships in. So if there was any other time that was a testament to this model and this model working, it's now. Just so you also know who's creating these emissions, what order in which these emissions happen, it's the ships, no doubt, are the largest emission producers in the system. And next comes the trucks, next comes the cargo handling terminals, particularly if all the equipment is diesel, next comes the train locomotive, and next comes the tug. And the three things that folks are most concerned about, in particular the South Coast Air Quality Management District, are particulate matter, we call it 2.5 and 10, NOx and SOx. So I'll give you an example. I moved to San Pedro only a couple of years ago, and just before I started working at LBCT. And I live in a little manufactured home, and I built this home, and I had a nice light gray bamboo deck. And I'm out there after only about a week, and I'm sweeping, and I see this layer of light black dust. And I said, well, what is this? Why is this here? And having, I grew up in New Jersey in a fairly industrial area, and come from a family where You know, I had always had bronchitis, and I was concerned, and my mother has Barrett's esophagus. That's a precancerous condition. My grandmother died of lung cancer. My grandfather had emphysema. I mean, we really had and experienced the impacts that can happen in industrial areas. And so I was sensitive to that, and I said, you know, how can I get involved in this? What do I need to do to be part of a solution? How can I contribute? And I was just floored when I showed up at LBCT and I said, wow, I mean, what made this company and the port invest $2.5 billion to make this one of the cleanest terminals in the world? And what more can we do to get fully there and be a showcase for everyone else? And what more can we do to contribute to all of the other terminals? So that's been a goal of mine from the moment I arrived. And these are the kinds of emissions that South Coast Air Quality Management District speaks about the most, and that EPA and CARB have specifically said, you know, you've got to address these issues. So what's the difference between, I've mentioned this term carbon neutral and net zero. You might see these terms all over, and in fact, again, when you're out in the lobby after the session, this is our net zero emission strategy. So this tells you exactly what we believe we need to do between now and 2030 to become net zero. That means you've actually reduced the emissions entirely. You've eliminated them. You have taken them out of existence. So once we replace those 270 pieces of equipment that are either fueled by diesel, propane, or gasoline, and we've already shifted our diesel to renewable diesel, but once we've eliminated those, we will be net zero. So that's about 4,000 metric tons that we have left. And carbon neutral means since we still have that 4,000 between now and 2030, like we got 10 new, IBC carts, and we got 1 new stacker, and we'll get 3 new UTRs coming onto demo. Each time we bring new equipment, those emissions come down, down, down. And we have been very successful in this past year to garner some federal and state support. And we will be replacing 60 yard tractors and in fact additional 12 yard tractors, 30 forklifts, the top handlers, the reach stackers, and a couple of IBC carts. So we've now got the funding in place to make that shift occur. And we'll be doing that over the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. So, if you're not really right at net zero yet, then you're trying to do what you can to be carbon neutral. You're looking at the offset marketplace. A lot of people will say offsets aren't good. That's like just paying to pollute. I really don't agree with that. We have gone through the entire global south, the southern hemisphere, and been outsourcing and extracting, and are affecting them. And you think about the greenhouse gas budget almost like an egg. If you thought about an egg and you thought the whole shell of the egg was there, it's like that's the whole budget of the planet. And any project that you can contribute to that reduces it brings the whole budget down. So an example of that is we're involved in, because we reduce our emissions by so much, we get these credits called low carbon fuel standard credits. We turn around and we bring those credits out towards the Central Valley, towards that Bakersfield area that we are also affecting because of the geography, because of agricultural practices, refinery practices, and now warehouses that bring the trucks in and out idling. And so what we have done is we have invested in projects at dairy farms to collect the methane from the cows and turn that into electricity. So we're taking the methane out. Methane is a greenhouse gas. It's 80 times actually more potent than even carbon dioxide. So that's one of the ways that we contribute and give back towards carbon neutrality. So it is a positive story, and I hope that those of you who want to ask me more questions about that or delve more into it, I'm happy to do that. So let's talk about what we need to do, what's left to turn over this terminal. Specifically, we actually just came from Washington, D.C. We need to attract about another $185 to $200 million to complete this transition. And again, the Net Zero report lays out the specifics on that. We also need to put more renewables on site. We've scoped out every potential roof, every flat roof that may exist to put solar on, and we'll look at things like distributed generation and tidal energy. We work with across this harbor as an entity called Alta Sea. That's a blue economy incubator, and they're looking at a lot of new technologies that we're excited about. So, so that's some of what is going to happen over the next 6 to 7 years to get us to that net zero place. And we're right here in your backyard. We are Long Beach Container Terminal. We care a lot about this community. I sat down just a few months ago with my CEO and I said, let's establish some really strong partnerships with different parts of the community, and let's stay there. Let's be consistent. Let's contribute on an ongoing basis. And in fact, the Aquarium is one of those entities and partners we knew we wanted to work with over the long term. In addition, it would be the parks and conservation area, and the Alta Sea would be an example of another solid environmental partner. But we also know that there's some real challenging issues related to humanity right here in Long Beach, and homelessness or hunger. We're partners with Children Today, which actually houses homeless babies and toddlers. And we painting their fence and gardening and helping them during open houses and helping them during fundraising. And then, of course, quite involved in things like turkey and toy giveaways, but we want to be a more concrete partner. Like, how can we bring them together with other organizations and meet on a regular basis so that we're truly contributing to the long-term viability and thriving nature of this city. So, and as Jenny said, we were pleased to receive the Sustainable Innovation Award of the Year project from the USGBC, the Green Building Council. And finally, I'm going to end here by just mentioning how important our workforce is. We couldn't do any of this without our workforce. As we transition this equipment, they have to be involved in every step. And in fact, when we shifted, from 2006 to 2016 when we opened that first berth, 2018 the second berth, 2021 the third berth, the workforce was involved in every step. We spent almost $10 million upskilling, reskilling. We had a whole vessel alongside that was training them. And as we bring in some of these last pieces of equipment and the charging infrastructure, we're partnering with them every step of the way, and we're looking at training programs that we can also be involved in. So we care about the workforce, and we did not, our payroll grew significantly. So there wasn't one job lost. And I just want to end by saying, it's a total pleasure to be working at LBCT. I enjoy it. I enjoy the genuine transparency, the humility in which they operate. And please, I welcome you to take down my email and write me or call me with any questions you may have. And I think we'll take a few questions right now.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. I know way more about shipping terminals than I did before.
Microphone? Yeah.
As she indicates,
Microphone's not on.
can I stand close to you?
Yes, you can.
Thank you for your presentation and your friendship. We are now going to take audience questions. You will find some lovely volunteers walking up and down the stairs holding a microphone. If you are interested in asking a question, raise your hand, and we will go where the microphones go.
See one right there.
There you go.
You turn the lights. Yep. I see. Yeah. Oh, one there and one there. Great. We got the lights up a little bit.
Hi.
Hi.
Congratulations on your achievements with our container terminals. My name is Val. I am wondering about the plan to replace that 15% of electricity that we will not be getting from SCE.
Yeah, great question. And that really speaks to, in our net zero strategy, we talk about 3 pathways. Readiness pathway, we're ready. We're fortunate in that when we built this terminal, we have a 66 kV dedicated substation. So we have enough power coming into the terminal to support the final transfer of equipment. But you're absolutely right that that final part is our resilience pathway. And that means we have to put more solar power and look at regenerative power. We might do distributed generation on the terminal. We'll also look at our battery exchange buildings and see if we can do energy storage in our battery exchange facilities. And we'll look at things like tidal or wind and whatever else is in the renewable stage, and that will make up for that additional 15%.
Thank you. I wanted to add to that thought the possibility, I have no idea if it is possible, of having movable solar panels that could be placed on top of the containers themselves that might help provide a lot more solar energy, because as we know, those solar panels take a lot of space.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. That would be, the trucking community would be the entity that we would have that conversation with, and we're actually pretty excited. In fact, Eric and I, who I told you is managing our yard and truck operations, I communicate with him on a regular basis as we have incentive programs and funding available for the trucks to shift over to electric, and how could we have a fast lane so they can come through faster. You know, they already they pay a $10 clean truck fee right now today, and that goes towards building some truck infrastructure for charging the trucks. But I think having solar panels on them is a really innovative idea and one we should definitely bring up. Thank you. I see you.
Hey, Bonnie.
Hey.
Want to first say thank you and congratulations on all the success. And just on a personal note, I know you and I share the same air. My pulmonologist actually said I need to keep the windows closed, throughout the day while living at home to try and mitigate the asthma that I've got going. So, and every time a horrible truck drives by with horrible exhaust and we breathe that in, on our adventures out on the peninsula, it really is personal. So I'm glad that you're making such a big difference.
Thank you.
One thing that I'm curious about, because I don't know too much about it, I've just heard whispers or headlines basically, is the carbon offset topic. I've heard it criticized as being fraudulent. These are just the headlines, hot takes, the modern equivalent of indulgences or a license to pollute, like you said. A small example that I am familiar with that I heard about on NPR was a system where clients pay for the planting of fast-growing poplar trees in the tropics. Mm-hmm. And those trees are ostensibly to reduce CO2, but they're fast-growing and fast-dying, raising a permanence concern as to when they die, they then release the CO2 that they were supposedly supposed to sequester, and it's actually old-growth forests with big old trees that do the best carbon fixation.
Yep, I've got the gist of the question. So our offset's a good thing. So,
how do you navigate that system to find the most?
Offsets are, they're part of an entire marketplace. My own personal belief, and many of the professionals that I work with, believe that the changes that really are about to occur and will occur will be incentivized by creating this big marketplace, which includes offsets, insets, renewable energy credits, low carbon fuel standard credits, tax credits. We understand the topic of money. And we move by a capital market. Whether we feel good about that or not, it just happens to dictate much of the transactions on this planet. So this is an opportunity for us to start trading carbon and having it be part of a marketplace that really can enable good, solid projects around the world. There are some bad. I mean, just like in any system, there are bad actors and there are some that aren't as sustainable as they could or should be. But on the whole, most of the carbon offsets are verified by 4 entities. And those include a lot of the NGOs. Like one of the gold standard entities is run by World Wildlife Fund and Conservation International and EDF and many of your large environmental groups. So it's, you know, it's a matter of looking at them and looking at whether they're material to you and they make sense. So when I went into when I first got to LBCT, we were buying offsets for refrigeration management in Canada. And I thought, well, okay, you know, that's an issue. Refrigeration management, you'll let CFCs into the greenhouse gas atmosphere, and we don't want to do that. So, but I thought, you know, we've got all these steel cranes. Let's look at something more material to us. So I really started to comb the whole market, and I looked at where there was a steel waste recovery facilities that were then taking that steel waste in, reusing it and making electricity from it. And I was like, that's more relevant to us. So let's get that verified by a third party and then let's determine that that's where we'll buy our offsets from. I mean, I must say that I work on these projects all over the planet and I work with a lot of indigenous cultures. And there's no question that I believe these cultures and these communities, they know how to steward these lands. They know how to protect these resources. And we need to get better at listening to and working and collaborating with them to not extract, to not log, to not mine, to look at how can we do above ground mining? How can we use recycled materials? There's plenty that's already out here, and that's the challenge in the global supply chain. Thank you.
Hi.
I see it. Yep.
Up here.
Yeah. Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah.
I feel like every time I bring up tidal power to people, they just kind of poo-poo it. So I was surprised to hear you bring it up, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little more about it.
Yeah. I think it's a very exciting possibility for the future. I mean, look at the oceans. Look at the oceans we have. You know, we just need to make sure that as we build tidal power, you know, we'll have inevitably cables and different things that'll, you know, be placed in the ocean. We want to make sure that we're not impeding marine life or not affecting it negatively, that we all care about. But no doubt, like I just had a company come to LBCT that had built a tidal power, a wave power program in the Nordics, in Norway, and it's currently fueling 4,000 homes. And I thought, did anyone know that Catalina is fueled by diesel generators? I'm like, is that absurd? I mean, I'm like, that shouldn't be the case. I mean, being out there, number one, every home maybe could have solar panels, since we are one of the sunniest places in the world. And number two, why don't we look at something like tidal power? So there's no question that this is this continuous movement, and it generates power and can generate electricity. For those of you who are interested, I'd highly encourage you to head over to Alta Sea, which is in San Pedro, down in the waterfront and one of the old warehouses, and it's getting all redeveloped, and it's an incubator for startup companies. And they've got a couple of tidal companies that are going to be housing themselves and being part of that incubator. So it's an exciting place, and we're excited to be partnering and looking at the companies they bring in there. So thank you for bringing that up. I think it's a very exciting possible future. Saw another couple of hands. We were all the way up there. Welcome.
Can you see this project going worldwide or nationwide?
What's that?
Can you see this project going worldwide or nationwide?
The LBCT, our whole, you know, it already, similar facilities exist today in Rotterdam and Hamburg. We actually share a lot of the same kinds of equipment. However, interestingly enough, where some of the environmental regulations are stronger in Europe, some are not so much. They don't have shore power. And so California was really ahead of the game. And a lot of people hem and haw and, about regulations in California, and are we regulating ourselves out of businesses, and are they too strict, and should they relax some of the laws and regulations? I believe that it takes both. It takes a carrot and a stick, and we do absolutely see changes happen when mandates come in place. But today, Rotterdam or Hamburg do not have shore power. So when that ship pulls up to the berth, it doesn't shut its engines down. It's spewing diesel fumes for the entire 3, 4, 5, 6 days, however many days it takes. And that's one of the exciting things about all of this equipment being electrified is we move ships in and out faster, we move trains in and out faster, we move trucks in and out faster, which is hence why we didn't have any waiting during the pandemic. So we would love to see similar models take place around the country and around the world. Asia also is growing pretty rapidly, and they do have several electrified terminals. So I think we're going to see a lot more of it. One of the important things, and I do want to highlight this, is that particularly as it relates to getting federal and state grants, the workforce is really important, and the workforce has made sure that in any of the grants we receive, that number one, things are built, we buy America, build America, which will be a challenge because we have outsourced everything, and now the question is how much and how do we bring things back to America, and do we want some of those things? So that's one question. The second is that that whatever equipment we electrify be human operated, so that we're not taking a man or a woman away from a job. So we'll be doing all of the above. Yeah, let's keep going.
Is LBCT a for-profit company, and how does this initiative impact the price you can charge your customers?
Yeah, a great question, and probably something that I don't have every detail on, so I'm not going to, share something I don't totally know about. But we are one of the few we're a private terminal, and all of the terminals are private. What's different about LBCT is that we are not owned by the ocean carrier. So many of the other terminals, the ocean carrier, the ocean liner, the ship actually owns the terminal. That is not the case. We're decoupled from that. So, I mean, the margins are they fluctuate, and they're not extremely wide in the shipping industry in general. I mean, there was a lot in the news that during the pandemic they were profitable. That I don't have all of the details on, but I can tell you that we today are owned by Macquarie for the most part. Macquarie is an Australian-owned private equity entity, and they actually own a large portion of about 3 or 4 other terminals in the San Pedro Port Complex. And they care a lot about sustainability. In fact, it was as a result of Macquarie's arrival that they said, we need somebody with real strength and sustainability to be part of this team. And it was to the credit of our C-suite and our management. They knew when they brought me in. Somebody, I think my boss said, if we're not serious about this, let's not bring Bonnie in, because she's going to hold our feet to the fire. And so we're excited about the support we're getting from our board. And Macquarie is a private equity, and in private equity, I don't know how much you know about them, they're responsible for a lot of the pensions of like firemen and teachers and policemen and the state PERGs and pension funds. So that's where the money goes back to. Okay, some more questions? I see a couple of hands over here. There's one that's been down here for quite some time. I see you've got your hand.
Do I get to speak now? Oh, exciting. Hello, thank you so much for your lecture. You spoke at length about trucks and EV charging infrastructure for those trucks and getting them offloaded and unloaded, but trucks still contribute to vehicle miles traveled and congestion and safety issues, particularly crashes and that kind of thing. Can you speak a little bit more to the challenges of using rail and expanding rail as an option regionally and locally?
Sure. Really great question, and I mean the port's here as well, and I can tell you they recently did the State of the Port address, and the whole theme was the Year of Rail. We had, I think, almost $350 million of federal and state grants that came in to support the Pier B project. That's this huge intermodal yard that's going to be based right here in Long Beach. It's a very exciting project, and it'll enable, today, LBCT transfers 30% of the goods that we have that come in from the ships onto rail, 30% today. When Pier B is complete, we will be able to move at least 40% by rail. We're also seeing some really, and just the same as the tidal power, just in the past couple of weeks, we've had some companies come in, with some short rail solutions that they might be able to, while we're, sitting waiting idle for a whole train to be full to go, maybe they can take containers little by little to the intermodal yard. And so we see that we're going to continue to evolve towards a net zero future even with rail. However, rail locomotives are still diesel, so we're really experimenting. This year we've got an electric diesel that's out there. PHL is the short haul provider in this area, and we don't know who else may enter the marketplace and offer us better solutions there. For sure, it's better if we send things just the same way. It's better if we send things by ship rather than air. It's better if we send things by rail rather than truck. No doubt about the congestion relief that it produces. What we do see happening, though, is the port is investing in the clean truck fee is generating about $90 million a year. So each time those trucks are paying $10 into that fee, it allows there to be funding to put electric charging stations for the trucks. We'll want those trucks to do the short haul, so they'll do the trip from here, the port, to the warehouses or the intermodal yards and truck yards and things. And then the drayage trucks, which are the long haul trucks, will need alternative fuel sources. And that will be either hydrogen, e-methanol, ammonia, LNG, CNG, I mean, different fuels that can take long hauls. So the ships, the trucks, long haul, trains, long haul, I mean, those have to look at other fuel sources and not electric. Okay. I think right here, yes, this woman, we've got to get her.
Well, I'll just piggyback from what she just said. I was going to ask pretty much the same question, so thank you.
Oh, good.
When they changed Long Beach Naval Shipyard and all that into all of this, which is fabulous, and I'm really enjoying hearing all that you've done, and I see what you do. And as residents, which most of us are, I think we are concerned about when all this happened, they didn't put as much thought into the bottlenecking of these big trucks and what it has done to our freeways. And I'm just hoping, and I think you answered the question, that you're putting as much thought into how you get your ships in and out, and the containers in and out, as you are getting these trucks in and out of the 710 freeway, the 91, because it's gotten very difficult.
Very congested. Yeah, thank you so much for that. We're extremely sympathetic to it, and I personally am as well. I drive over both bridges every day to and from work, and I see the congestion that's there, and I know that it's contributing. This environmental justice issue is real. The communities shouldn't, it's like one of those things when I was saying earlier that, we often say California is more regulated. Well, we care about our environment, we care about the state, we care about people's health, and And it shouldn't be that a small percentage of the people have to suffer. As I mentioned, if 40% of the goods are moving around the entire country, it's like there shouldn't have to be a child with asthma because somebody needs a couch in Minnesota. You know, it's like the remainder of the country and the states need to contribute to this as well. And we need to have a broader national dialogue about the communities who suffer because of environmental justice and that may not have a voice. And so we work hard to make sure that, you know, when we get out there, we're translating materials, we're listening, we're carrying, in fact, it's so exciting to think about all of the different people that are in this room. I have a woman I work out with every morning, and I have a guy I bicycle with, and I have my hairdresser, but I have one woman I play bunco with, and she works at Kaiser Permanente with the senior executives. And I've said to her, look, I know Kaiser is the main hospital that serves, you know, West Long Beach and Wilmington and Carson and Gardena and Harbor City and San Pedro, and like, how can we work together? And she and I have sat down and said, let's get all the data and the numbers together. Let's be real about this, and let's look at how we continue to alleviate this for the whole region. And I hope you know that you have here someone who truly believes in this and truly will advocate for this until I leave this dimension. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. I hope that you can tell how enthusiastic she is about sustainability and that it fuses into you. She will be remaining here during our reception as well, as she said, with some of her colleagues from the container terminal. So if you didn't get your question answered tonight on the microphone, do approach her. She'd be happy to tell you more, or use that email address that you see up there on the screen. Thank you all for being here tonight. We hope that you come back to another First Wednesday. These are held monthly, as you're likely aware. And again, because we have such generous sponsors, we are able to be here tonight with you. In March, we'll be talking about wolves, that endangered species, sometimes controversial, and really charismatic as well. An opportunity for you guys to learn a little bit more about wolves. We are here at Aquarium, and so you might be confused about that connection, but you'll learn more when you come in March, why we're talking about wolves at an aquarium. We will also have a book signing happening at the event. The author, Erica Berry, will be signing her book, Wolffish. Now tonight, you have the opportunity not only to ask questions of Bonnie, but to mingle amongst yourselves, and we have a special treat. We aren't just opening our ground floor gallery that normally is open, we also are opening our babies gallery, which is located at the top of the stairs. So you have the opportunity to exit either here on the floor, the way you came in, or up at the top and look at some of our animals that are found in the babies gallery. Thank you again so much for coming tonight, and please enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care.